All right, everybody. Jason Sloan here with Furtado Law Solutions, here with the appraisal master, Steve Patrick.
You're very kind. Thank you.
No problem. Well, I'm hoping nobody else is having issues with their cell phones. I had yesterday, my phone got turned off because evidently AT&T sent me a new phone that was not as good as my other one, and I didn't turn it on, and so I was dealing with them in the middle of the night, and then first thing like 5 a.m. today. So if anybody else is having issues with their phone getting turned off, I feel for you guys. And if I missed a call, I apologize. Just shoot me a text. Everything's good to go now. So,
Cool.
All right, Steve. So how are you doing?
I am doing well. It's a gorgeous sunny day. I think it's like 80 degrees outside in Dallas, Texas. Ordinarily, it's around 70 this time of the year, but it's 80 today. And so, but it was a little cool this morning, about 60. So,
yeah, it's about 80 here also. I didn't convert my stuff back to Fahrenheit. I need to do that. I was hanging out with some friends, and they're like, "What?" And so I had to show them in Celsius for Denver, and they're like, "No, we don't want to go there." I'm like, "Yeah, you guys don't know cold." You guys got those ice storms. You knew what cold was.
Very true. I'm gonna be in Denver next week.
Yeah. Yep. Nice. All right. So let's get this party going. Can you give us your background? I know a lot of people know it, but not everybody, obviously.
Well, I worked as a firefighter and a paramedic and a police officer in my early 20s. In about my mid-20s, I decided I wanted to be a millionaire. So I went into sales. I started studying sales and the art of persuasion 35 years ago. And I found myself 25 years ago unemployed. I was working in sales for a bank. I was selling those credit card swipe machines. Every time you swipe a card, I got a small cut of the charge, and then I got screwed over by the bank, and I find myself, in need of a job. And I had sold 2 machines to a contractor here in Dallas, and he tried to recruit me to sell roofs for him at the time. And I said, no, I have this deal going on with credit card swipe machines. So I went back to him 2 weeks later and said, hey, is that roofing sales position still on the table? I knew nothing about construction. I had helped my dad roof my parents' house when I was like 16 years old. Mm-hmm. And I knew nothing about construction. I didn't know the difference between a ceiling joist and a rafter. Ignorant. And so this guy trained me and taught me. And unfortunately, he was a liar and a con man. And actually, he knew a lot about construction, a lot about sales, and about insurance, including the appraisal provision. But he kept lying to my clients, so I had to start my own company. And so I did that. And I worked as a contractor for about 10 years, learning trial and error. I didn't have anyone teaching me what I was doing. And then I got my claims adjuster license, not because I ever wanted to be a claims adjuster, because I didn't. I got it so when I get up on one of those borderline roofs, I could pull out my wallet, show them my card. Hey, I'm an adjuster too. And I could get the roof bought back then, like an accountant, exactly. Accountant, instant affinity,
Exactly.
And so, and then one year we had just no hail or wind in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's very uncommon, for there to be just no work.
Like Denver last year.
Yeah. So I'm busy doing kitchen and bathroom remodels, and then 3 hurricanes hit Florida the same year, that fall, about 15 years ago. And my business partner at the time, Chris Foster, he said, hey man, we have our adjuster's license. I know a guy, we could go out and work as adjusters working these storms. I go, oh yeah, let's go do that. Because it never occurred to me that isn't why I had my adjuster's license. And so I worked that was Hurricane Ivan. And then I worked, I think, Wilma, Katrina. I worked just about every hurricane during that time. And I worked almost a year doing Hurricane Katrina. I did a whole bunch of flood work after all the wind work was done, doing flood adjusting. And I made significant amount of money working those losses. And so I decided to start my own claims adjuster licensing and training school. I had to write my own curriculum. Fortunately, I could take a year off from working because of the income that I had made working Katrina. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a 4 book curriculum And I started my own school, and I was licensing and training claims adjusters across the nation. And I did that for a while. And then I read a book called Delay, Deny, Defend. I don't know if you've ever read the book. And, and it blew all the wind out of my sails. It occurred to me that the insurance companies were systematically cheating clients. I didn't want to believe that. As a claims adjuster, I didn't want to believe that it was systematic. I mean, a claims manager here, a claims manager there. Sure, I knew that was going on. And I realized that they didn't want me to teach the claims adjusters how to do the right thing. They wanted their claims adjusters to do what they're told.
Exactly.
And so at that point, I said, fine, I'm going to go back to my roots. This is about 7 years ago, back to my roots, go around the nation and teach contractors how to deal with unreasonable claims adjusters, and teach PAs, teach plaintiff attorneys. I do some expert witness work. In fact, I've done probably half a dozen expert witness
for David.
Yeah, with David Furtado at Furtado Law there in Denver. In fact, I was contacted about a month ago. He got another one coming up for me to do some expert witness, and sometimes I actually have the time to be able to do that, and I love doing that. In fact, I did one in Kansas City 2 months ago, and that was a lot of fun. The insured ended up getting a righteous outcome for their loss, and so I really enjoy doing that sort of thing.
Unfortunately, me and Kyle have sued the insurance companies too many, so we're not good for expert witnesses.
Hey, man, David is an exceptional attorney. I mean,
oh, yes.
I've been on the witness stand as an expert witness and have him, asking me questions there during trial, and David is exceptional. He knows his stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's why he doesn't take every case. I mean, that's part of the reason we started this business is he's like, you and Kyle know how to put together claims. A lot of these guys, they're giving me this stuff. They don't have any invoices. They don't have any paper trail. And guess what? If you don't have any of that, you're not going to be able to win, At the end
give you a shoebox.
Yeah.
They give you a shoebox. It looks like a rat's nest and say, yeah, and
exactly.
Go win the case. I mean, my goodness.
It's one thing if little Mrs. Smith is suing the insurance company, but if you're the big bad contractor that makes so much money, which we all know that's not completely true. There's plenty that are making great money, but they're working for it. But there's plenty of them that are busting their butts and they're like, how am I going to deal with this? And so being able to document all that is huge. Like documenting everything with your pictures, with your code documents, manufacturer's requirements, all that stuff is needed. And also have your bills. If you do go to litigation, it's not something that anybody if you've been through it, I mean, I like it because I like a challenge, but most people hate it. It's just like me. I've actually got attorneys from the other side in deposition that started yelling at me, which is great because then they just offered us money to walk away
while being recorded. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the thing is you got to have all that stuff. Use your QuickBooks and everything else and have your stuff. If you're using a work order to pay your guys, that's fine. But guess what? You need to have a check to go with it to say, yes, this isn't just a work order. It's no different than an invoice. If you have an invoice and you disputed it with your contractor, no different than the insurance, you need to track it and show, hey, yeah, he actually charged me too much and I paid him this and here's what we paid and this is why. Those are the kind of things that you need in going to litigation, which a lot of these guys don't understand. They think that it's just easy. And it's like, no, you got to have everything together. It's easier if you're doing it before you get the job done. It's a lot easier, just like if you guys go to an appraisal, sometimes it's easier if there's not everything set up, sometimes it's just money disputes and stuff, but
documentation is king.
Exactly. You need that for appraisal too, which some of these guys don't know either.
No question about it. The more documentation we have, the more bullets we have in our gun to be able to get a righteous outcome. What's right.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll go into that a little bit more later. But so we were talking a little bit ago, and something that you posted recently is about gross and net profits. And I just seen, actually, you posted and I commented on it. You put up a survey about what people think is a good net profit. And obviously, we were talking earlier, it really depends on where you're at in your region as to what you need. I mean, obviously, if you're in the lower sections and you can work the majority of the year, obviously there's days we can't all work. If it's hailing, we're not going to be on roofs having our guys bake nails. If it's snowing
days,
if we have a freak ice storm or something, yeah, we have that. And just like Colorado, we have some bad days, but most of Colorado you can roof pretty much year round, and most of the lower sections of the U.S. you can. But you also have the places we were talking about, Minnesota, New York, and all that, where it's like an 8-month, or some places it's a 6-month. If you're in Alaska, it's probably 3-4 months.
I was in the first week in February. I was in St. Paul, Minnesota, doing a private training for Savage Roofing. Mm-hmm. That's when the winter storm hit Texas, and it was like 0 degrees at my house in Dallas. I mean, it never gets down to 0 degrees in Dallas, ever.
Because you guys don't have heaters there, right?
It was like 30 below in St. Paul. And I told those guys, I said, "You are insane to live here." And they looked at me like I was crazy, and they go, "The wind's not even blowing."
Exactly.
As if to say, it's not that cold. The wind's not blowing.
Exactly.
It's below 0.
Yeah.
Yep.
So okay. So in the lower sections, where do you see it at as far as reasonable for a gross and net for the average company?
So this is what I teach. Minimum 40% gross and 20% net. True net after you've paid all your bills. So I'm watching this episode of Shark Tank. How about we be taught by billionaires who do this all day long every day? So I love watching Shark Tank, learned a lot from those guys. And one day there was this lady, she was on there pitching this meat company that you could buy beef and pork and chicken through the mail, kind of like Omaha Steak Company. It comes in the big styrofoam boxes with dry ice and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And her margins were 20%. And I remember Kevin, Mr. Wonderful, him just going, 20% margins? Are you kidding me? We could never do business with a company that only has a 20% margin. Mm-hmm. And these guys are billionaires. And so they know what they're talking about. So a 20% margin would be the minimum. Anything less than that, I'd walk. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have risk. I mean, a guy could fall off the roof and break his neck. You have all this potential liability that people don't think about because accidents don't happen every day or anything like that. You think it's never going to happen to me. And you have all this. You'd be better be making at least a 20% net. So the book that I recommend everybody read is Markup and Profit by Michael C. Stone. You can pick this book up for about $50. His website is markupandprofit.com. And he says that in our industry, the average true net profit is 8%. And that is barely keeping your nose above water, barely surviving. At 10% is maybe is survival mode. 10% is survival mode. 15%, you could start maybe thinking about scaling your company and building an actual business, growing your company. 20%, man, I'm telling you, if I didn't have a 20% net margin, I would just walk away from the job. It's just not worth it. That's my personal belief.
Yeah.
And it's backed up by reading this book. Mm-hmm. Man, guys, study this book. It will make you far more profitable in your business. There have been over 1,000 contractors that have come to Michael over the decades. He's been doing this 53 years. Over 1,000 contractors come to him on the verge of bankruptcy, and they said, "Man, what can we do to save our company?" And he would give them A, B, C, D, and E. And over 1,000 companies on the verge of bankruptcy, only 2 of them went bankrupt over the decades. And the first thing he tells them to do is raise their prices. And they go, "Oh man, I can't raise my prices. No one will buy from me." They're right. If they believe that no one will buy from them, they're right. Mm-hmm. Henry Ford said it. If you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you're right either way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you believe that they will buy from you, they will, because people can tell, because you have an air of confidence about you, and people can pick up on that, even on an unconscious level, that you actually know what you're doing, you're competent, you're confident, and that's the type of person they want to do business with.
Exactly. Kind of like even if you're doing insurance jobs, guess what? These are the things that we do that sets us apart from other companies.
Exactly.
Whether you're showing like, hey, yeah, actually we paint the stacks, we do this, we do that. All of a sudden you're standing apart. This is, and the whole deductible debacle that I'll be going into in another show is setting yourself apart. You already said Steve Badger, now he's got that in his crosshairs. So they changed the law, and it's like people are still doing it. I mean, I had a contractor I turned down because he's like, yeah, I can't make any money. And I look and I'm like, why aren't you making money? He's like,
I guess not.
Deductible. And I'm like,
You're giving
that's where all your profit is. Unfortunately, you're in Texas and there's high deductibles.
I posted just yesterday or the day before, about a year ago, a young man, he sounded like he's about 20, 25 years old, called me up and he goes, I got a problem. He goes, I'm a one-man shop doing everything myself. I did 1.5 million my first year. I said, wow, that's a bad problem to have. I didn't do 1.5 million my first year in business 25 years ago. And of course, economies of scale and inflation such 25 years. But anyway, he said, my problem is that they just turned off my lights and I can't pay my light bill. I'm having to borrow money from my mom to get my lights turned back on. I said, oh, so you're doing the work for the insurance company price and eating the deductible. He goes, well, yeah. I go, you're broke because you're doing this. You have no profit. So, in fact, Stone in his book on page 9, here, I'm going to read it. Right here. 30% of all new construction-related businesses fail the first year. 57% fail by the end of the second year. 74% fail by the end of the third year. 3 out of 4 gone in 3 years. In the previous page 7, reasons for failure. Number 1, not charging enough for their work. Reason number 6, lack of profitable sales. See, that was this guy's problem. He had plenty of sales. He didn't have any profitable sales because he wasn't charging enough for his work.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing he has to do is start charging more for your work. And if you feel like, if I do that, I'll lose sales, then you need to learn how to sell.
Exactly.
You need to make the investment like I did 35 years ago. I mean, I have a huge bookcase full of books that I've read, and a lot of them on sales and sales process and the art of persuasion. And we have to learn you have to hone your skills and learn how to sell.
Well, and the thing is you can even go into the fact of, hey, have you been through a hailstorm with your car? Have you been in a car accident? Okay, they'll fix it, but you're paying your deductible. And, sometimes they give that away, obviously, but that's not. But you could say, hey, have you ever had a car totaled out?
See, yes. The way I used to explain it when I was a claims adjuster and I was adjusting a claim and I was visiting with a homeowner or a commercial property owner, I said, this works just like at a pharmacy. You go into the pharmacy and you're going to get a prescription and you have a $10 copay. Mm-hmm. You have to actually open your wallet, take a $10 bill out, put it on the counter. The pharmacist takes the $10 bill, they put it in the till, and the insurance company pays the rest. Mm-hmm. A deductible works just like that. Let's say you have a $3,000 deductible on a home, let's say. So you take $3,000, you give it to the contractor, they put it in their till, and the insurance company covers the rest. It works the exact same way. You have to actually take the money out of your pocket and pay the contractor. And when you put it like that, they go, oh, it works just like a copay at the pharmacy. Exactly. And, in people's minds, their thought process, because they don't understand how a deductible works. So in their mind, they're going, what is this like? So I tell them what it's like. Something that is familiar with them, the copay at the pharmacy, and then they get it.
So all right, guys, everybody watching and in the future, this is a great word picture. It's a word you guys probably don't understand, but he's created a picture for somebody using his words.
Yep.
So, using a great example.
Man, tell stories. Facts
exactly.
tell, stories sell. In fact, even when you're dealing with claims adjusters up on a roof or on the phone, whatever the case may be, use the art of persuasion. And their emotional word pictures is the number one strongest form of persuasion. Emotional word pictures. So anytime that you can tell a story and be able to convey emotion to the person so they can feel based on the story how that other person in the story felt, the emotion is what draws them into making the proper decision. And then you do a call to action. Same thing with the adjusters. You do a call to action. It's the exact same thing. Dealing with an adjuster and talking with a prospect is the exact same thing. It's the art of persuasion.
Yep. And letting them know that just because they were told they can't do something doesn't mean that that's the truth.
Well, a lot of people are ignorant of what their options are.
Yeah.
I mean, how can a person choose an option if they don't even know what their options are? It's incumbent upon us to explain what their options are.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Well, and then we do that with the adjusters too. I can't do this. And why is that? Well, I was told that. I mean, I had an adjuster with Allstate, like on 3 claims, I had to call the supervisor. And so this was when I was, me and Kyle were banging them out back in the day. And so I literally got the supervisor on the phone and I go, do you want us to call you every time? Or do you I go, either you just make it, hey, you guys need to take care of this because it's required, or you just put it that if you see KWL Enterprises, take care of this because you're going to be getting these phone calls and emails and everything else. And I go, guess what? Drip edge isn't something you reuse. It's not. I go, it's, we're not talking about angle iron here. It's a flimsy piece of metal here.
I like that.
Right? It's not meant to be reused. It's a one-time use. Otherwise, guess what? It would be there would already be holes in it to put the nails in, and it would be substantially thicker than it is.
In fact, it's against the law.
Exactly.
Because there's no way to take it off without damaging it. It's against the law.
Yeah. Well, and they're like, well, on the eaves, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so what you're saying is I'm supposed to spend extra time doing this. Are you going to pay me for an extra 30 roofer hours to work around this? Well, no. So why aren't you paying it? Well, yeah, if you put it that way, it makes sense. I'm like,
see, guys, what Jason is doing here, he's explaining and justifying the inclusion of the line item, in this case, drip edge. So you explain to the claims representative, you explain and then you justify it using facts and evidence, not opinion. Jason was using facts and evidence. And what's the gold standard for facts and evidence? Credible, objective, third-party source material. That's the gold standard. And so it's not my opinion that we should put drip edge back in. He's using the code. That's his evidence. Is the code credible? Well, it's the freaking law, right? It's a criminal act to fail to comply with the code. Mm-hmm. So he's using a credible, objective, third-party source, in this case, the building code, as his justification for including the line item. So my question to you, adjuster, what's your source that forms the basis of your decision to exclude it? Because I'm all ears. And then, see, that's a close. And then you shut up, next person talks, loses. And you wait for him to respond. And my favorite question of all is, what makes you say that? So whenever an adjuster or a consumer, a prospect, when you're selling your services to them, and they make some outlandish statement or they make some statement, I love asking, what makes you say that? And then you shut up and you smile and you wait for them to respond. Mm-hmm. Oh, another thing that I just love doing is help me understand. There's something about human nature that if you ask someone for help, that they're going to go out of their way to help you 9 times out of 10. So if I tell an adjuster or a prospect, help me understand, well, of course they want me to understand their position because they want me to agree with their position. So they're going to go out of their way to explain their position to me so I can understand. And then once they've done that, then I continue asking them probing questions to get to the, you start out broad questions and you narrow down the questions. You get down to you find out what the true root cause of their position is. And same thing with a prospect, same thing with an adjuster. This is the art of persuasion.
Yep. And sometimes they're just pig-headed and you got to go up the ladder. And we'll go into that in a little bit.
Sometimes they are. So guys, get out your pen and paper. I want you to write something down.
Exactly.
So as you go up the chain of authority when dealing with a claims department, if no one can be reasoned with, then the claims department has backed your client into a corner. And they have 6 options available to them, not 7, 6. So I want you to write these down. Option number 1, your client, Mrs. Jones, can do nothing. I mean, that's one heck of a bad option, but it is an option nonetheless, and many consumers do nothing. And so that's option number 1. We don't recommend that. Option number 2, so let's say that you're at $20,000 on this loss and the carrier's at 12. That's pretty typical actually, right? So there's an $8,000 spread. So option number 2, the client can take it on the chin, come out of pocket the $8,000 and hire you to do the work right. Option number 3, they can take it on the chin and they can hire a contractor that the carrier recommends and they can do $12,000 worth of work. They're not going to do $20,000 worth of work for $12,000. These mediocre contractors that do substandard construction are going to do $12,000 worth of work for $12,000 at best. So there's 3 options. Option number 4, they can go to court. 2 different types of court: small claims court. The consumer represents themselves, and it's a very informal process. You don't need a lawyer. And different states vary from state to state the maximum amount that you can take to small claims court. Or if the client is in over their head, then they can hire an attorney like Dave Furtado and to represent them. Option number 5 is they can hire a public adjuster. If your client is in over their head, they need representation. They either need a public adjuster or an attorney. All right. And option number 6 is they can go to appraisal. The appraisal clause is a secret paragraph buried down in the bowels of the policy that no one reads. I bet you guys listening have never read your homeowner's policy or your auto policy, have you? So what do you think the consumer knows about their policy if you've never read yours yourself and you're in the business? You're a professional in this business. Mm-hmm. So it says, if you and we fail to agree on the amount of loss, either party may demand appraisal. So it's a team of, allegedly it's a team of experts who are going to go out and do a site visit. They're going to do a damage assessment. They're going to determine a reasonable method of repair based on those damages. And then they come up with a price. So there's 2 appraisers and there's an umpire. The first thing that the 2 appraisers do is they name an umpire, and then they schedule the site visit. They go out there and take a look. They put together their appraisal. It's similar to an estimate, but it's actually an appraisal. The 2 appraisers do perform an appraisal. They swap appraisals, and they take a look at and see what remains in dispute between the 2 of them. If they can come to an agreement, that sets the loss, and it's binding on both parties 99% of the time. Most of the time, the carrier pays within about 10 days. If the 2 appraisers can't agree, then they activate the umpire, and the umpire comes in and helps the 2 of them bring it to conclusion. And, that usually takes maybe 2-3 weeks, something like that. And only those items that remain in dispute go to the umpire. So let's say that there were 10 items originally in dispute between the 2 parties when they went to appraisal, and the 2 appraisers agree on 6 of the 10 items. There's 4 items that remain in dispute. That's what you take to the umpire, the 4 items, not the whole 10, because you agreed on 6 of them. You bring the 4 items in dispute to the umpire. The umpire then helps the 2 appraisers bring it to conclusion. And I do, I've been doing appraisal and umpire work for 22 years now, and I've done almost 2,000 of these. In fact, I even have a course. We teach contractors and PAs and plaintiff attorneys how to be an appraiser and how to be an umpire. My business partner, Tony Rugas, and I've been doing this 22 years. He's been an appraiser 35 years. He's been an adjuster for 51 years, longer than most of you guys have been alive. How old are you, Jason? You're younger than that.
41. So
yeah.
he's got 10 years on me, and just
he had 10 years experience the day you were born. So yeah. Tony's my business partner, and he taught me most of what I know. So anyway, that's pretty much how it works. Appraisal is not a silver bullet because one doesn't exist. Stop looking for a silver bullet. There isn't one, nor will there ever be one. The question is, given your client's set of circumstances, what is the best option for them? So it's incumbent upon you to be able to know those 6 options, be able to explain them to the client. And so then they based on the information and the education you've given them, can make a well-informed, educated decision based on the facts about what's in their best self-interest. And then they can hire an appraiser, they can hire a PA, they can hire an attorney, go to small claims court, pay you out of pocket, whatever decision they happen to make.
Mm-hmm. You're the navigator, they're the captain.
Yeah, exactly. You just explain so that they understand what their options are. Then they determine what's in their own best interest.
Yeah.
In fact, don't even try to steer them. Don't try to steer them.
Exactly.
Rather, educate them. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you one of the things you cannot do. You can tell a client, hey, look, I don't recommend you go to appraisal. You can tell a client, hey, I recommend that you don't go to a PA. But what you cannot do is recommend a client not go to an attorney. That's practicing law without a license. Mm-hmm. You cannot recommend a client not go to an attorney. This is very important because most people in our industry don't know that. Mm-hmm. That's UPL, the unauthorized practice of law. In most states, in my state in Texas, that's a Class A misdemeanor. You don't want that. Another thing you don't want to do is you don't want to tell the adjuster, hey, I'm going to recommend my client file a lawsuit against you. Guess what? Now, the legal department at the carrier can batten down the hatches, and nothing said or done past that point that they batten down the hatches is discoverable by your client's legal team. Wow. You just really hurt your client's chances of being able to get a good outcome from their lawsuit by opening your yap and telling the adjuster, I'm going to recommend my client sue you for bad faith. Don't say stuff like that. Think, be smart, be wise. Don't say things like that.
Exactly. So we went over what, the steps for they would go through, but what makes a good appraisal file?
We don't need a lot of photos because we're going to go out and do a site visit. The only time we don't do a site visit is when, pretty much the only thing in dispute is price. Mm-hmm. If there's a scope dispute, we almost always go out and do a site visit and typically with the other appraiser. I prefer to go out there with the other appraiser. That way I can ask questions. Like I said, use the art of persuasion when I'm dealing with the other appraiser. Mm-hmm. But if the only thing in dispute is price, there's no need to do a site visit. Maybe the only thing in dispute is overhead and profit. I mean, what are you going to look at? If you do a site visit, see, over here is the overhead and over here is the profit. No, you can't. There's nothing to see at the loss location if what's in dispute is price. So then we don't do a site visit, and that saves a lot of money for the consumer, the cost of appraisal.
And are those like still an hourly thing, or how's that all set up with y'all?
Yeah. We appraisers can't work on a percentage.
No, I understand that, but do you guys have like, so if it's just a desk appraisal, is it just like a set fee, or is it still like an hourly setup?
We charge by the hour.
Okay.
Yeah, we charge by the hour because it varies. So if you're dealing with a reasonable appraiser, and we track these sort of things, 59% of the time in our company, LP Loss Consulting, our appraisers are working with an appraiser who can be reasoned with 59% of the time. So those go rather quickly, and it doesn't take very many hours. And so the cost is minimal. About 41% of the time, we're dealing with an appraiser who can't be reasoned with. And they're just going to toe the line of what the claims adjuster said. And that's all there is to it. So in those cases, we're going to have to go to umpire. It's going to take more hours. It's going to cost more. So rather than charging a flat fee, what happens if you charge a flat fee is you're overcharging the clients 60% of the time, and you're undercharging 40% of the time. And so we figure it's a lot more fair. Now, we can tell you how much based on the circumstances that you tell. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions and determine what the circumstances are. We can give you an idea of where it's probably going to come in at. Tony's a master at that, by the way. He asks all the questions, and he can tell you what it's going to take, about this. But we cannot guarantee results. Any appraiser or any attorney or PA for that matter who guarantees they're going to win, run away from that person.
Exactly.
No one can ever guarantee you an outcome. You just can't. And we don't win all the time either. When I use the term win, what I mean by that is that the insured has been indemnified, and there's an adequate amount of money for the contractor to do the work at construction best practices and make a fair profit. That's what I consider a win. And we win probably 90% of the time, which means we don't win 10% of the time, 1 out of 10. There's a contractor here in Dallas that has been a contractor for decades, and the very first appraisal that he brought us, it was a flop, and we didn't perform well. And John comes to me and he goes, "Okay, there's my 1 out of 10. You better win the next 9 out of 10. I go, "Man, what a great attitude." See,
exactly.
Listen to what I'm telling him, that that we don't always. So every 10th customer, new customer, their first one, if you believe statistics, is going to have a loss for their very first one. And he stuck with us, and we've been doing appraisals for him for over a decade now. But it happens.
Yep, it happens in every.
No one's going to win 100% of the time.
But a lot of it is not using that as a loss. But okay, how could I have done it differently? David does that a lot. He'll have a big case coming up, and it's something that nobody's really taken on. And so he might have a contractor that has a similar case on a smaller one and use that as a reference point. And if he wins it, well, then he could just use, hey, here it is. And if he loses, it's like, okay, why did we lose?
What can we learn from this?
And is this claim worth going back again, on this to get the decision reversed? But, it's about learning from your mistakes. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you're never going to make it in any business.
You're not. Stay teachable. My goodness. Do you know everything? If you don't know everything, then you need to be teachable. And if you know everything, then maybe you should go do something else now.
Or you should teach everybody what you know, right?
I certainly don't know everything. Tony doesn't know everything. In fact, you'll be surprised at the number of times he's been doing this again. 51 years. He's an executive general adjuster that's handled claims as large as $40 million losses, right? That's a substantial loss. And he'll call me up and bounce things off of me, not because I'm smarter than Tony, because I'm not. I don't have more experience than he does, obviously. But he bounces things off of me because I come at things from a different angle than he does. And I can say, have you considered this, or have you, looked into that or something? He goes, oh man, I'm glad you brought that up. See, we can help each other out. As opposed to, man, I've got it all going on. I know everything. I don't need anybody's help. What a bunch of nonsense.
Exactly. Exactly. So the next thing is we talked about earlier is having bids to back up some of your appraisal items, especially specialty items that you're not making any money off of.
Man, if you're going to use Xactimate or any estimating software for that matter, even RS Means, right? The granddaddy of them all. That's not designed for unique, types of construction. It's designed for typical houses like my house here in Frisco, Texas. I don't have anything unique or unusual in my house that would need a specialty bid. But if you're dealing with a client that does, don't Xactimate or none of the estimating software are designed for unique things. So you better, like you were saying earlier, like stucco. Maybe you have a strange type of application on stucco. Then you're going to have to go out and get a bid. Let's say it's a 3-story building. Do you think that Xactimate was designed for stucco on a 3-story building? Obviously not. And so you're going to have to go out and get a bid. So if you have a client that this is particularly true in the commercial space, because there's all kinds of, you can have Tectum on the wall. That's not an Xactimate. You need to go out and get a bid. See, the difference between an estimate and a bid is an estimate is, I think it's going to cost such and such, but there's no commitment attached to it. But a bid, the client says, I can perform this work to these specifications in this amount of time for this price. See, now there's a commitment there. And so you should, whenever possible, in fact, Stone says that if you're going to have any tradesman do anything over $300, I think he says, then you need to get a bid from your sub. So you send over a work order, say, this is what we're looking at, what kind of price are you looking at? And so there's your work order.
And sometimes any of us who've been dealing with insurance companies for any amount of time, sometimes there has to be some coachable moments where, okay, thanks for the bid, but why do I need to do this? Because the insurance company is going to ask me, and they're going to ask you too. But if I can give them a little bit of reason why, then, maybe I can save you a phone call, type of thing.
And that's where what I was saying earlier, in writing, you need to explain and justify why this particular line item, let's say, is legitimate and reasonable. You need to use facts and evidence to explain and justify. And what's the gold standard for facts and evidence? Credible, objective, third-party source material. That's how you do it, guys. Not your opinion.
Yeah. I worked on a supplement on an HOA, and the HVAC company gave a bid, but they didn't have anything broken down. And I'm like, I need stuff broken down, not just saying I'm $20,000 to replace 5 units and comb out this many,
Yeah, give me some specifications.
Exactly,
Yep.
You
number the AC units up on the roof, 1, 2, 3, 4 through 17 or whatever, or you can A through S, and so you know exactly which unit you're addressing, and say on AC unit number A, we're doing this, on B, we're doing this, and they give specs. Exactly. They give a specification sheet that says exactly, so that way you know what they're bidding for. What are you going to do for X dollars, right? And a bid, especially with the volatility of building materials and labor nowadays, maybe a bid is good for 7 days, maybe it's good for 10 days, and you can let the adjuster know this bid is only good for 10 days because of the volatility of the market. And so if you want to agree to it, great. If not, then guess what? In 10 days, this bid will, it will expire and we'll have to get another one.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So I think the next thing we're going to talk about is umpires, which is huge on appraisals.
Dmitry Lipinski did an interview with Steve Badger. He's like the pit bull of the insurance industry. Mm-hmm. And he probably enjoys being called that. He's a great guy. I've had lunch and breakfast with him on a number of occasions. He's a good guy. Anyway, he's very good at what he does. defending insurance companies. And he was just saying yesterday that if there was one thing, I was watching the interview Dimitri had with him, about an hour interview. I highly recommend that you watch it. If there's one thing that we need more of, it's qualified umpires. And what we're looking for in an umpire, number one, is that they're unbiased. Because if an umpire has bias, then it turns the entire process into a farce. And I don't even want them to be biased towards us, because it turns the process into a farce. It's a fraud, right? Second thing that what we're looking for in an umpire, we're looking for someone who's competent. All right. So if we're looking at, a shingle roof, do you know shingles? If it's a real estate agent, that isn't going to work, right? So maybe a contractor, maybe a claims adjuster, something like that. If it's a commercial roof, a TPO roof, you don't want someone that only knows shingles. They're not competent for the type of loss that we're determining. Mm-hmm. And so competency is the second thing that we're looking for in an umpire. And the third thing we're looking for in an umpire is that they're reasonably available. I don't want it to take 2 or 3 months. You're so busy, it takes 2 to 3 months for you to get around to it. That's not right. And so anyway, that's what we're looking for in an umpire in the appraisal process. Those 3 things: unbiased, competent, and reasonably available.
All right. Second to last question, because I got a curveball right now.
Oh, here we go.
What gave you guys the idea to start Level the Playing Field?
Tony and I have been working as claims adjusters, and we work for IA firms, independent adjusting firms, right? And so an independent adjusting firm, they're assigned all these claims, and then what they do is they assign them out to independent adjusters. And I told Tony, because both he and I had been doing appraisals as individuals, and we would help each other out. We weren't technically business partners at that point. We are now, but we weren't at the time. We would just help each other out a lot. And I said, why don't we start a company like an IA firm and run it just like that? The PAs or the contractors can refer us the business, and then we would train some excellent guys how to be just exceptional at doing appraisals, and we would assign them those appraisals just like we were assigned claims. Tony ran a number of IA firms. Mm-hmm. I said it's a proven model. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's when we started LP Loss Consulting about 7 years ago.
Okay. And then the Facebook group?
It's funny. I wish I could remember who suggested this, because Level the Playing Field, someone had called me and says, why don't you start a Facebook group? And I didn't even know what one was. So I told Tony, I said, I think we're going to start a Facebook group. He goes, what's that? I said, I don't really know either. But because we're members of the North Texas Roofing Contractors Association, if we don't screw this up, we could probably get maybe 100 contractors in Dallas join. And I think we're about to top 17,500 now. And what I think we've been doing about 5 years or something like that. It's taken off a life of its own, and it's just incredible. And, the truth is the Lord blesses us. Mm-hmm. You know how many people would know who Steve Patrick and Tony Rugas were if the Lord wasn't blessing us? Maybe 5 or 10 people, right? And so he's putting us up on stages and around the nation to talk to you guys, and you guys listen to us, and so that's the real truth of the situation.
Oh wait, one sec. Okay, I got somebody who has a comment.
Okay.
How has the contractor market changed? What has been the greatest needs?
Oh, training. The greatest need, the change is that fewer and fewer people know how to sell. They don't understand the process of doing this type of work. Mm-hmm. And again, training. Mm-hmm. And they don't know how to sell. Again, training. So I do 2-day private trainings for businesses around the nation. You bring your team in, and the first day I teach how to overcome unreasonable claims adjusters. And the second day, I teach foundational basic sales training. And I don't teach fancy closes or things of that nature. I mean, I know them. I've studied them for decades. But, you know, the Super Bowl trophy is called the Vince Lombardi Trophy. When he was the coach of the Green Bay Packers, he drilled foundational basics. He didn't do flea flicker plays, things of that nature. And he would just wipe the field with people and win Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl because he drilled the foundational basics.
Mm-hmm.
And so on my second day of these private trainings, I trained foundational basic sales principles, and I train on time management and how to set and crush your goals. And I've literally had, you know, owners have 20, 30, 50 of their people in these trainings, and they come up to me afterwards and says, wow, what you've taught us changes everything. We're going to reorganize how we do our business. And I'm going, oh, great. I hope this works. Actually, I know that it works. But to be put on the spot like that, we're going to completely change our entire business model. I go, wow. And they've done very well. So there you go.
All right. So, all right.
Oh, and another thing is, where's our industry going 5 to 10 years from now?
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. So
industry.
If you've been doing this for 10 or 15 years, you know, I've been doing it for 25, you see the insurance company, they're systematically covering less and less and less of the roofs. They're going to ACV on the roof, or maybe they have a RSPS, the roof surface payment schedule, that depreciates the amount of coverage on a roof based on its age. For every year that the roof ages, they take off 2 or 3% of the coverage. At 10 years, maybe you only have 70% coverage on the roof. And then they take off the regular depreciation to pay the ACV check. And then they take off the deductible, and the person gets hardly anything. So I see that as time goes by, they're probably going to be covering roofs less and less. If you're wise, you owners will start a retail division and start selling retail. Learn how to sell financing. In fact, you should be using the exact same sales process with an insurance claim that you do a retail client. You should be pricing it the same, and you should be using the same process, and you should be selling financing to every one of your clients up front. That way, you're not playing bank waiting for the recoverable depreciation. You're not playing bank waiting for the mortgage company to get around. You know, they spend 3 or 4 weeks before they endorse the check. It's nonsense. So sell financing from the beginning, start a retail division, and run your guys through the retail division, because guess what? You can't use the phrase free roof when you're selling retail, can you? And then your guys will hone their skills. They'll become exceptional salesmen. And someday, if the insurance industry stops covering roofs, you'll never notice it, because you have such a robust retail division that, man, you guys are cranking it out. And so I recommend that you do that. Look into a solar division. It just makes sense that if I'm going to replace someone's roof, then you upsell them solar panels right there on the spot. Very good margins on solar panels. So have a number of streams of income and not just insurance roof work.
Yep.
Exactly. That's what I see in the future. I think that 10 years from now, the insurance companies won't be paying for roofs at all. If they can get by with it, they won't be paying for roofs at all. What are you going to do then? See, you can be ahead of the curve by establishing a retail division right now and building it up, seeing that coming, or you can be a reactionary, and 5 or 10 years from now, you go, oh my God, they're not covering roofs anymore. What do we do? And you're behind the curve. So which one do you prefer? That's what I see coming.
Exactly. Because there's people all the time that call and they just want to change the color of the roof. It makes no sense to me. But hey, if you got the financing set up, by all means.
That's right.
Right? Plus, also the good thing about financing is because of deductibles. That's another one. And also upgrades. You know, we've all seen those houses where everything's laminate or 3-tab, and then you got a tile roof in the middle of the neighborhood. You're like,
Boom.
what the heck is going on here? Well,
Yep.
they wanted it, or they got an ad, or whatever. If you don't ask them, they're not, if you don't give them options, they're not getting, they can say no, but they could also say yes. And that little $10,000 roof could be a $30,000 roof.
Let me tell you another thing real quick. So my business partner in the Commercial Roofing Academy, Paul Reed, he says, how much money are you driving by every day? So the average commercial roof, flat roof, lasts 20, maybe you could stretch it to 25 years. So that means that every 25th building is 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years old. So probably somewhere around 4 to 5% of them are worn out and leaking right now. So how many commercial buildings do you drive by every day?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. How many commercial buildings do you drive by every day? Every 20 or 25th one has a worn out roof that's leaking, and they need a roof, and no one stops by and knocks that door. They're intimidated by, the residential guys are intimidated by the commercial because there's more zeros. And you know what? In one sense, it's smart, because if you mess up on a residential roof, it costs you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Your company will probably survive. But if you make $100,000, $250,000 mistake on a commercial roof, oops, it wipes you out. That's why we started the Commercial Roofing Academy. This is a shameless plug right here. But that's why we started the Commercial Roofing Academy, because when I started in this business, and I learned the roofing business through trial and error. And it cost me a lot of money in dumb tax, as Paul calls it, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So we started the Commercial Roofing Academy so that you can sit at the feet of giants. I'm talking about guys who have been doing commercial roofing for decades. They're multimillionaires, mega millionaires. They've learned the art of getting it done right. They've made all the mistakes. So they're teaching our students the mistakes they made so that you can learn from that and not make those mistakes. And so it's a really unique learning process, is when you can sit at the feet of giants, these guys that have been doing commercial roofs. Like next month, Bill Johnson, he's been a commercial roofer for 60 years. He's 75 years old. His dad started Johnson Roofing in Waco, Texas in 1941. That's 80 years ago, 5 years before he was born. Mm-hmm. So he is going to be doing a webinar for all of our students and teaching them what he's learned in 60 years of commercial roofing. He roofed the Baylor Bear football stadium in Waco, Texas. I mean, how would you like to get that job? It would scare me to death. But guess what? Bill, because the depth of his knowledge and him being able to do it, he was able to pull off and roof that building. He's going to be doing a webinar for our students in the month of November. How would you like to sit at his feet and learn from him? So that's what we do at the Commercial Roofing Academy. So if you have any interest in finding out more about that, you can give me a ring. I'll be happy to visit with you about it.
All right.
Shameless plug of the day.
Okay. And so I'm going to put up your phone number for that. If anybody needs anything for appraisal or whatever.
Appraisals. We got LP Lawson Company for appraisals. We have estimates made easy. The hands down best estimates done in the nation, because we have F9 notes. If you're familiar with Xactimate, that's where you put your notes in there for every line item you know that the carrier is going to omit. That's where we explain and justify using facts and evidence. And my son Adam runs that company. We Level the Playing Field partnered with Adam to do estimates made easy. And also we have Contractor products. It's a set of contracts and documents. It's like 25 different documents and contracts built into the program. If you have any interest in finding out about that and how it's a shield to protect you from unscrupulous consumers, give me a call about that as well, and I'll be happy to visit with you.
Yep. And one last thing we're going to talk about. And this is the hook that I put on, because we talked about this. The little known facts about appraisal, such as, can you supplement an appraisal?
So what the appraisal clause says is it says that the award shall be binding. At least that's the case in about 99% of the time in the appraisal clause that says it's binding. What if there's information that the appraisal panel didn't have when they drew their conclusions and made the award? Let's say that you tear into a roof or into a building and you find hidden damage. What you can do is, and we've done this, and very few appraisers actually know you can do this, is you can have the insured request that the panel reconvene to consider facts and evidence that weren't at our fingertips when we draw our conclusions and when we made the award. And we've had good luck doing that. And sometimes we have to threaten. I say we, the insured has to threaten the appraiser or the umpire with an errors and omissions claim against their license, an E&O claim. They have E&O insurance, errors and omissions. It's professional liability insurance. And so we have had some really good luck doing that.
Sounds good. Any other little secret tidbits that we need to know about?
Man, it's the art of persuasion. It's just like when you get up on a roof and you're meeting an adjuster, you don't show up with your boxing gloves on and argue with them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. Likewise, in appraisal, that's the reason why so the last time I did an appraisal class was in San Antonio a couple months ago. We recorded it. And that lesson, within a week, we're going to have it up online so that a person can learn how to be an appraiser online with an all-day class, and they can log on and they pay like $499 and they can watch, 30-minute, an hour at a time. It's like a 5 or 6 hour class. I have a 6-hour class on general contractors, overhead and profit. That's going to be online. And so next week we'll be letting everybody know how they can sign up for those classes and watch them online.
Okay. I just thought of one because it's come up for a couple clients I've dealt with it because of David. I have him in my wheelhouse, so that's an easy one. But how do you guys deal with this? And obviously contractors are going to need this. How do you guys deal with it when an appraisal demand sent in and the insurance company doesn't do anything?
So the appraisal clause says that the award shall be binding on both parties. That means the carrier has to pay whatever that they were short, whatever the amount is. Now, they can apply coverage if there's an applicable exclusion that says that we don't owe for certain things, then they would exclude payment for those things, and rightfully so, because that's what the contract between the two parties says, and there's an applicable exclusion. If there's no applicable exclusion and they're just delaying it, there's this thing every state has called the first party prompt payment statute. Like in Texas, they have 30 days to pay according to the prompt payment statute. So you can have an attorney send a letter in, say, so let's say that 10 days has gone by, or State Farm, they're notorious for this, says we're not going to pay the award. I mean, their own appraiser signs the award. It's a 3-signature award, and they say we're not going to pay. So in that case, you'd have to hire an attorney. The attorney, the first thing that they would do is they would then send in a prompt payment letter saying that you're about to violate the law, the first party prompt payment statute, and typically that gets a payment.
Well, I'm talking about just setting up the appraisal, which that probably would do that too, right?
Yep. So what you do is if the carrier refuses to go to appraisal, maybe they have a good reason. Maybe they haven't had an opportunity to settle the claim yet because you're going to appraisal so quickly that they haven't had an opportunity to settle the claim. And that's the case, then afford them the opportunity to do that. If enough time has gone by and they're not being responsive or they're not being reasonable, then you demand appraisal. If they refuse to go, then what can happen is we do what's called an open chair appraisal. In my 22 years of doing this, we probably had this about once a year. The insured then files a motion with the county clerk's office, and we can educate the client on how this works, and asking the judge to appoint an umpire. And then what happens is the court will then send out a letter to the insured and the carrier saying on such and such date, the judge who hear all arguments about setting an umpire. What happens is the insured shows up with their lawyer. The insurance company has their lawyer there. And the first question that the judge typically asks is they ask the attorney for the carrier, have you named an umpire, an appraiser? Which we know, of course, they've refused to name an appraiser. And without exception, thus far, of course, there's always a first time, but thus far, every single time they've asked that question, the lawyer representing the carrier says, oh, yes, we've named Fred Jones as our appraiser. And of course they have, now standing in front of the judge, right? Then what happens is the judge appoints an umpire and we begin the process.
Gotcha.
Yep. Every single time that we've ever had a carrier refuse to go to appraisal, that has worked thus far.
So I got a question. Do you have any training classes upcoming on GC OMP?
So, man, I love doing live classes. I far prefer live classes because I can see your face, I can see your body language and those sorts of things. I can take live questions. I far prefer doing them live. And we probably will do one or two a year on the overhead and profit. I've been studying that issue for 25 years, overhead and profit. I've written a book on general contractors' overhead and profit, which when you come to our class that you get, I have this treasure trove of documentation, credible, objective, third-party source material that proves that we're right about that general contractors' overhead and profit is due and owing. And so it gets expensive sometimes for a person to fly in. They have to take time off of work. They fly into Dallas or our last class we did was in San Antonio a couple months ago. And then you got to get a hotel room and all these sorts of things. So we're going to make these classes available online within about a week. So you can then learn general contractors' overhead and profit and how to get them to pay that in the comfort of your own home. And you can watch it at, it's about a 6-hour class online. Again, I prefer to do it live, but I understand time constraints and the cost of being able to, travel and those sorts of things. So we are making those online, and we'll be telling people about it in about a week on Level the Playing Field.
And also, when you have a venue booked and then it gets closed down because of COVID or whatever, that goes to it also, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do classes for Owens Corning. They send me around the nation. I was usually doing about 12 to 15 of these a year. Anywhere from 50 to 400 students, 400 contractors would fill, a big, huge room. And I'd be teaching all these guys for Owens Corning. I'd be teaching them the class on how to overcome unreasonable claims adjusters. And as soon as COVID hit, they shut that down. They're rather, they're afraid of lawsuits and those sorts of things. It's probably a pretty wise thing. We were gonna start up on November 4th next week, do another class in Kansas City, but the Delta variant got them a little shy on doing those classes. But we'll crank those up next year, and so I'll be going around the nation and teach these classes for Owens Corning. It's a lot of fun.
All right, sounds good.
If you're not a member of Level the Playing Field, join Level the Playing Field. It's a Facebook group and it's free. If you don't have my book with the same name, Level the Playing Field, call me and I'll tell you how to get that. So see you guys on Level the Playing Field.
Yeah, and if you guys need any help with your supplements, you can call or text me at 720-296-6618, and you can email me at jason@furtadolaw.solutions. Man,
I tell you what, Jason knows his supplemental game, and David knows the lawyer game. I mean, he is a bulldog as well, just like Badger is for the carrier side. David Furtado is the man. He is a pit bull. If he believes he's right, man, he doesn't let go. And so you could do a lot worse, that's for sure.
All right. Well, thanks you again, Steve.
Of course. All right. Good visiting.